I never planned for this. He was older, confident, and my mom's boyfriend. But that night, the way Mark looked at me wasn't casual. It felt like he saw through the walls I'd built. And for the first time, I didn't want to disappear. Welcome to True Gay Tales, where secrets unfold and emotions run deep. Subscribe if you're ready for stories that feel too real to be fiction. I was 19, still living at home, not by choice, but because I had nowhere else to go. College had fizzled out, and life felt like a movie happening to other people while I sat alone in the dark. Most days, I felt truly invisible, quiet, awkward, just fading into the background. Then came Mark, late 30s, a clean beard and fitted shirts. He had a calm, steady strength that was completely natural. He and my mom met at her office, something about him being a contractor. I didn't pay much attention. I'd seen enough of her relationships come and go. But Mark noticed things. He noticed how little I spoke at dinner. The way I finished my meal quickly and escaped to my room. The way I never met his eyes. I thought I was hiding. He saw right through me. One night, he knocked on my door. Not loud, just enough to make me pull off my headphones. "You always hide in here?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe like he belonged there. I just shrugged. "I'm just not really a dinner table person." He nodded, then spotted my controller. "You game." That night, we played for almost 2 hours. He wasn't great, but he didn't try too hard to be. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. After that, everything shifted. He'd ask about my day. He helped me fix my old laptop. Once, he even brought me coffee while I was up late, editing photos. Small things, yes, but when you're used to being overlooked, small things feel absolutely huge. One weekend, my mom visited her sister, leaving just me and Mark at home. The first night, he cooked a real meal, not frozen takeout. Pasta with a glass of wine. He poured one for me, too. Later, we ended up on the couch watching a crime series. Somewhere between episodes, he asked, "Have you ever been in love?" I laughed nervously. "I don't think so." He studied me for a moment. "But you felt something, right? For someone." I hesitated, then whispered, "Yeah, maybe." That kind of stuff is confusing when you're young, especially when nobody talks about it. I wanted to ask what he meant, but I didn't. The silence was heavy, but in a safe way. It felt like he understood. Later that night, I walked past my room and realized my door was open. I always closed it before bed, always, and there he was, leaning in the frame again. Calm, steady, but different now. Something was about to change. His eyes weren't just kind. They were searching, trying to understand something deep inside me. Then his hand moved toward the door handle. He looked straight at me. "I'll close it if you want," he said. I stayed silent. I didn't stop him. He gently pushed the door shut. The air changed instantly. He hadn't touched me, yet the room felt heavier, warmer. My pulse raced, and my skin buzzed like it knew something. I didn't move closer right away. He just leaned against the door, quiet, waiting for me to speak first. But I couldn't. I didn't trust my own voice. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure. He took a single step toward me, then another. Suddenly, the space between us was gone. I found myself pressed against the dresser with him standing in front of me. Still, he didn't reach out. He just looked at me, steady and careful. "I'm not going to do anything you don't want," he said calmly. His words carried patience, not pressure. He gave me room to say no, but I didn't, because deep down, I didn't want him to step away. And realizing that unsettled me more than anything. My breath came unevenly. Not from fear, but from wanting something I hadn't expected. Not just him being close, but him choosing me, seeing me. "You're shaking," he said gently. I hadn't even noticed. Then his hand rose slowly and rested on my arm, not pushing forward, but simply steadying me. His hand was warm, grounding, a reminder that this was real. "I see you," he whispered. Those words struck me deeper than anything else could have. I looked at him, really looked at the lines near his eyes, the quiet restraint in his expression, the way he was holding back to keep me comfortable. For the first time, I leaned in just enough to rest my forehead against his chest. He let me. His hand brushed the back of my neck, his fingers light and careful, offering reassurance instead of expectation. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't empty. It was safe. It was calm. It was ours. "You should rest," he murmured after a long moment. I didn't answer, but he stepped back anyway, giving me one last look before leaving the door half open behind him. A reminder, perhaps, that the choice was always mine. I barely slept that night. The next morning, things felt different. Not wrong, just profoundly changed. He was in the kitchen making coffee, casual in sweatpants like it was any other day. "Morning," he said, as if nothing had happened. "Hey," I replied, pulling my hoodie tighter. Without asking, he poured me a cup, sliding it across the counter like he'd done it 100 times before. We sat in silence, both pretending not to replay last night in our heads. Finally, he broke the quiet. "I didn't cross a line, did I?" I met his eyes. "No, you didn't." He exhaled, nodding. "Good. I'd never forgive myself if I made you feel uncomfortable." I stared into the coffee, then whispered, "It didn't feel wrong." He turned, meeting my gaze again. And in that quiet moment, I knew something had shifted between us, and there was no going back. We didn't talk much that day. We watched TV, ate leftovers, but the air between us felt thick. Like every simple action carried more weight than before. That night, I couldn't sleep again. My door was cracked just slightly. I wasn't sure if he'd come by, but around midnight, I heard soft steps in the hallway, and then there he was, standing quietly, the same as before. No words this time. He stepped inside, gently closed the door behind him. I sat up in bed, my pulse quick. He walked over slowly, sat down beside me, not touching, just close enough that I could feel him there. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Me either," I whispered. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I asked, "Is this wrong?" He didn't flinch. "It's complicated," he said, "but not wrong. Not if it's real." I looked at him in the dim light, and before I knew it, the words spilled out. "I don't want to feel invisible anymore." His jaw tightened, like the honesty struck something deep in him. He leaned forward and rested his hand on mine. "You're not invisible. Not to me." That's when I let him hold me, for real this time. And in that moment, I didn't care what it was called. I just knew it felt good to be seen. Not as someone's responsibility, not as a burden. Just me. I didn't pull away when his thumb brushed against my hand, or when his other hand rested lightly at my side. His touch was gentle, but it carried a heat that made me want to stay close. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But the way he looked at me, his eyes searching mine like he was asking something without words, it felt more intimate than anything physical. He leaned his forehead against mine and whispered, "You're allowed to want this." My throat was too tight. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or pull him closer. But he didn't move. He just stayed there, holding me, steady and patient. And maybe that's what finally broke something open inside me. I reached up slowly, slid my fingers around his wrist, and held on. We stayed like that, forehead to forehead, hearts pounding, until he finally whispered, "Get some sleep." When he stood up to leave, I stopped him. "Wait," I said. He turned, waiting. "You can stay. Just stay." His face softened. "You sure?" So, he climbed into bed next to me, fully clothed. No touching, just two people sharing the same air, the same silence. And for the first time in forever, I slept like I was safe. The next morning, he was gone before I woke. But he'd left the door slightly open and folded a blanket neatly at the end of my bed. That small gesture meant more than I expected. It meant he cared enough to be close, but careful enough not to push. And somehow, that made me want him even more later that day. I heard the sound of keys in the door, voices in the kitchen, and for a moment, everything felt sharp again. I hid in my room with my headphones on, pretending the world didn't exist. Hours later, when I finally came out for water, he was sitting on the couch watching a movie with the volume low. He looked over and gave me a small nod. Not much, just enough to say, "I see you." I sat on the other end of the couch, heart pounding. We didn't speak, but after a while, he passed me the blanket from his side. I wrapped it around my legs. We were only a few feet apart, but it felt like 1,000 things were unspoken between us. During a quiet moment in the movie, he whispered, "You okay?" I nodded, "You." He gave a small smile, trying to be. The silence after said more than words ever could. He was holding back, careful not to ruin this, not to cross some invisible line. That restraint only made me want to be reckless, because nothing in my life had ever felt this close to right. I shifted a little closer. He noticed, but didn't pull away. Then I did something foolish, for maybe brave. I let my hand brush his, just for a second, before pulling back. He didn't move, but slowly he turned his hand over, palm up in invitation. I stared at it, heart racing. Then I took it. Our fingers locked quietly between us, hidden under the blanket. Safe. I held my breath, knowing deep down that once you hold someone like that, things can never go back to the way they were. Later that night, I was brushing my teeth when he stepped into the hallway. He looked tired, messy hair, soft eyes. Leaning against the doorway, he said, "You're making this really hard." I froze, toothbrush in hand. "What do you mean?" I mumbled. He laughed quietly. "Being around you. Wanting to be around you." I spat into the sink. "I'm not trying to make things complicated. I know," he said. "That's what makes it harder." In L. Then why are you still here? He hesitated, then stepped closer. Because I care about you more than I should. Then, what now? He held my gaze for a long moment. "I don't know, but I'm scared to walk away." Those words hit harder than I expected, because I felt the same. He was standing inches from me, and the silence between us was louder than anything. Then, gently, he asked, "Can I kiss you?" It wasn't a demand. It was seeking permission, human, real. I whispered. Just one word, but it shook something inside me. And then he kissed me. Slow, careful, like he wanted to remember every second. I let him, because I didn't want to forget either. The kiss didn't last long, but it stayed with me. Even after he pulled away, even as we stepped back, eyes wide, hearts racing, a line had been crossed. And neither of us was trying to go back. For a while, neither of us spoke. He ran a hand through his hair. I shouldn't have, he started. I stopped him. You asked, and I said yes. He searched my face for regret. There wasn't any. If you regret it, I added softly, just say so. He shook his head instantly. No, I don't. That's the problem. I leaned against the counter, still feeling where his lips had been. Then, what's the problem? He gave a dry laugh. You're you, and I'm not supposed to want this. I didn't reply. I just watched him. The weight in his voice hid more than he was saying. Why not? I finally asked. He looked down. Because of everything. The timing, the risk, the fact that I can't stop thinking about you, even when I try. My chest tightened. But for once, someone wasn't pretending. He wasn't hiding. So I stepped forward just a little and whispered, then stop trying not to. He stared at me. No smirk, no games, just honest sadness. Then he whispered, if I stay, I'll cross the line again. I know I will. My heart dropped. You're leaving. Maybe I should, he said quietly. No. The word came out too fast, too desperate. He looked up at me, and I swallowed hard. I don't want you to go. His voice cracked. Then tell me what to do. I walked right up to him, heart pounding, palms sweating, and I said the truest thing I'd said in months. Stay, but stay for me. This time, he didn't hesitate. He leaned closer, and the way he held me felt like he'd been carrying the weight of our silence for weeks. For the first time, I didn't push him away. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I wanted it, because I wanted him. It felt like something hidden inside us finally broke free. His presence wrapped around me. My hands clutched his shirt, as if letting go meant losing everything. The world outside blurred until it was just us. For a moment, I didn't feel small or uncertain. I felt seen. I felt real. But then, a sound from the hallway shattered it. A door creaked. Footsteps. We froze. He pulled back fast, his voice unsteady. Go to your room, now. I ran. My heart beat louder than the floorboards under my feet. I slipped beneath the covers, still feeling the heat of the moment clinging to me. Then I heard Mom's voice. Babe, you still up? Yeah, he answered, calm, somehow. Just brushing my teeth. Okay, I'm going to bed. An hour later, he knocked softly at my door. He didn't come in, just whispered, You okay? Yeah, I whispered back. And then his footsteps faded down the hall. The next day was unbearable. Every glance felt heavy, dangerous. And Momsey was completely unaware. Chatting about dinner and weekend plans while we sat there, pretending nothing was unraveling inside us. Because I wanted him. Not in a wild, reckless way, but in that quiet, aching way you feel when someone is only a wall away. Yet, it feels like miles. That night, I left my door cracked open. He didn't come. I knew why. It was too risky. Still, I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second we'd shared. The next morning, I found a note on my desk. Can't keep pretending this is nothing. Don't want to hurt anyone, especially you. But I've never felt this before. If you still want this, meet me in the garage. 10:30. By the time the clock struck, I was already there. Arms crossed, trying not to shake. He came right on time. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it. I need to hear you say it, he told me. Say what? That you want this, too. That this isn't just some dream in my head. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of him, and answered with everything I had. I've never wanted anything more. His breath left him in a rush, almost like pure relief. And then he drew me in. That moment didn't feel stolen anymore. It felt claimed, like the space between us finally belonged to something real. Not guilt, not fear. This shouldn't feel right, he whispered. But it does, I whispered back. There were no fireworks, no soundtrack, no storm outside. Just two people in a quiet garage, finally letting go of what they'd been holding in. Every look, every touch carried a weight, not of recklessness, but of longing. And when he said, I don't know how to stop wanting you, I stayed silent. Because the truth was, I didn't either. ... Because just as things started to get real, we heard the front door slam. Babe. It was his sister's voice. My whole body went ice cold. He jumped up fast, straightened his shirt, grabbed mine off the ground, and tossed it to me. Go upstairs, he whispered fiercely. Go, he said again. Now, I ran, shirt half on, hair a mess, heart pounding so loud I was sure she could hear it. I made it to the room seconds before she walked past the hallway. She didn't knock. She just called out, Hey, you seen my brother? I cleared my throat. No. I think he's in the garage. Thanks. She sounded normal, but I wasn't. I sat there, knees to my chest, sweat cooling on my skin. I wanted to throw up, not because of what we did, but because I knew it couldn't last. That night, dinner was quiet. He sat across from me like nothing had happened, like we hadn't kissed in the dark, like I hadn't been in his lap just hours ago, feeling everything. He made a joke about the pasta being overcooked. His sister laughed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her everything. That he was mine now. That this wasn't just a crush. It was something real. But I didn't, because she looked so happy, and I hated myself for that. After dinner, I went up to my room. I didn't wait for him. I didn't leave the door cracked. I sat in the dark, trying to remember how I even got here. Then I got a text. I'm not going to pretend I didn't feel what I felt. But we have to be careful. I'm not backing out. I just need time. You mean too much to me to screw this up. I stared at the screen, reading it 5 times. Then I texted back, okay, but please don't disappear on me. He replied instantly, never. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple, but it was something. And at that point, I didn't need fireworks. I just needed to know he still wanted me when the lights came on. Because real love, it's not just what happens when the door is closed. It's what survives when it opens again. The next morning felt like waking up with the secret stitched into my skin. I saw him in the kitchen, laughing with his sister like nothing happened. And maybe that's what hurt the most, how easily he slipped back into the role she gave him. Brother, helper, good guy. But to me, he was something completely different now. He looked up when I walked in. Our eyes locked for maybe 2 seconds. It was enough because I saw it. The guilt, the longing, the ache we both tried to hide. The days after that were torture. He kept his distance, smiled like he meant it, talked like a man who had nothing to hide. And me was starting to feel like maybe I'd imagined it all. The couch, the kiss, the text. But then one night, when his sister went to bed early, he came to my door. He didn't say a word, just looked at me with that face. The one that haunted me every time I closed my eyes. I opened the door wider. Silently, he stepped inside and shut it behind him. This time, he locked it. We didn't rush. He sat on the edge of my bed. I sat beside him, close enough to feel the heat between us, but not touching, until he said, I tried to stay away. I looked at him. You did a good job. He smirked, but his eyes were sad. Didn't feel good. I know. Then he turned to face me. Do you hate me? No, I said instantly. I just don't know what we are. He reached for my hand, held it like it was the only real thing in the room. I don't know either, he whispered. But when I'm near you, I feel alive. Not just attracted, seen. And I can't ignore that. My heart fluttered because I'd never heard anyone say something like that to me before. Not a guy, not someone like him. I leaned in. He met me halfway. And in that kiss, it didn't matter how wrong it looked on paper. It just felt right. He stayed the night. Not for anything wild. Not for sex. Just to hold me, to fall asleep beside me, forehead to forehead, like nothing outside that room even existed. I woke up first, watched him breathe, the rise and fall of his chest. I watched how calm he looked, like maybe for once he wasn't pretending. Later, we talked, really talked about her, about us. He told me he was ending it with my mom. Not because of me, but because she deserves someone fully there, he said. And I'm not, and me. I whispered. He looked at me, steady. You're the only thing I'm sure of, right now. It wasn't instant. There were tears, fights, awkward dinners, but he followed through. He moved out